My son cruelly excluded me from his wedding, the most important day of his life, and I wasn't invited. 27 years of sacrifice, gone. But that same day, I received $10 million. My son. Leave your like and tell us in the comments which city and country you're watching from. My name is John. I'm 57 years old. I've spent my entire adult life building something meaningful. Not just wealth, but a legacy for my family. I thought my son understood that I was wrong. My son cruelly excluded me from his wedding, the day I should have been walking him down memory lane, celebrating the man he'd become. I was sitting alone in my study, staring at a check for $10 million. That money would change everything, but not in the way anyone expected. Before I continue, subscribe and hit the notification bell because we publish new stories daily. Leave your like and tell us in the comments which city and country you're watching from. Let me take you back to the beginning. 27 years ago, when my son Michael was born, I made a promise. I would give him every opportunity I never had. I was 29, fresh out of business school, working 80-hour weeks at a consulting firm in downtown Chicago. My wife Sarah and I lived in a tiny apartment on the north side. We had nothing but dreams and determination. Michael was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and the most curious eyes I'd ever seen. When he was 3 months old, I started a college fund. $25 a week. It doesn't sound like much, but when you're making $32,000 a year, every dollar matters. I remember the exact moment I decided to start my own business. Michael was 2 years old, playing with wooden blocks on our living room floor. He looked up at me and said, "Daddy, build castle." Those words hit me like lightning. I wanted to build him a castle, a real one, made of opportunities and security and love. So I did what every desperate father does. I took risks, massive ones. I borrowed against everything we owned, our car, our furniture, even Sarah's engagement ring. I started Peterson Consulting Solutions from our kitchen table. The first client paid me $800 for a market analysis that took me 3 weeks to complete, but it was a start. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. The early years were brutal. I worked from 5 in the morning until midnight, 7 days a week. Sarah took care of Michael while working part-time as a nurse. We ate ramen noodles and generic cereal. We drove a 15-year-old Honda Civic with a broken air conditioner. But Michael never knew we were struggling. Every birthday, he got the toy he wanted. Every Christmas morning, there were presents under our small tree. When he started school, he had the same name-brand clothes as the other kids. I made sure of that. A father protects his child from his own failures. By the time Michael was 7, the business was growing. We moved to a house in Wilmette, a suburb with excellent schools. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small backyard where Michael could play soccer. The mortgage was $2,200 a month, more than I'd ever spent on anything in my life. But when I watched Michael kick a ball against our own fence, in our own yard, it was worth every penny. The sacrifices became routine. I drove the same Honda Civic for 8 more years, while Michael's friends' parents picked them up in brand new SUVs. I bought my suits at outlet stores and wore them until they were threadbare. Sarah and I never went on vacation. Every extra dollar went into Michael's education, his activities, his future. When Michael was 12, he wanted to play hockey. The equipment alone cost $1,400. The league fees were another $800. Private lessons with a former college player were $200 a month. I said yes to all of it. I worked an extra consulting contract on weekends to pay for it. Michael never knew that his hockey gear cost more than our monthly food budget. The business kept growing. By Michael's freshman year of high school, we were pulling in consistent 6-figure revenues. I hired 2 full-time employees. We moved to a bigger house. Michael got his own car when he turned 16. A 3-year-old BMW that I bought certified pre-owned for $32,000. I remember the conversation we had the night before he left for Northwestern University. We were sitting in his room, surrounded by boxers and suitcases. His full-ride scholarship covered tuition, room, and board. But I wanted him to have spending money, to never worry about choosing between textbooks and food like I had in college. "Dad," he said, I know you've sacrificed everything for me. When I graduate, I want to work with you. Build a business together." I nearly cried. This was everything I'd dreamed of. A legacy, a partnership with my son, something we could build together and pass down to his children someday. Michael graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business administration and a minor in economics. He was brilliant. Sharp, he had ideas that would revolutionize our industry. When he joined Peterson Consulting Solutions, our revenues doubled within 18 months. We expanded 2-3 offices across Illinois. We hired 22 employees. Michael became my partner, not just my son. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. For 5 years, we built something incredible together, father and son, side by side, creating a company that mattered. We specialized in helping small businesses optimize their operations and increase profitability. We had a 92% client retention rate. Our reputation in the Chicago business community was impeccable. Michael met Jennifer during his 3rd year with the company. She was a marketing director at one of our client firms. Beautiful, intelligent, ambitious. I liked her immediately. She was driven in the same way Michael was, the same way I'd been at their age. When Michael brought her to Sunday dinner for the first time, Sarah and I both knew he was serious. Their relationship moved quickly. They were engaged within 8 months. The ring cost $12,000. Michael asked my advice before buying it, and I told him the same thing my father had told me. Buy her something that shows you understand her worth. Jennifer's ring was perfect, a 2-carat solitaire that caught the light from across the room. The engagement party was at our house in 60 people, including Jennifer's parents, who flew in from Denver. Her father, Robert, was a successful real estate developer. Her mother, Patricia, was a retired corporate lawyer. They were nice people, but there was something about the way they looked at our house, our furniture, our lifestyle, like they were appraising everything. During the party, I overheard Patricia talking to Jennifer in the kitchen. "The house is lovely, dear, but it's a bit modest, isn't it, for someone who owns a successful business?" Jennifer laughed. "Oh, you know John. He's very practical. He reinvests everything back into the company." "That's admirable," Patricia replied. "But a man should be able to show his success. Your father always said that appearance matters in business." I didn't think much of it at the time. Every family has different values, different priorities. I'd always believed in living below your means, in building wealth quietly and steadily. Flash and ostentation had never appealed to me. The wedding planning began immediately. Jennifer wanted a destination wedding, somewhere tropical and exclusive. She showed us pictures of resorts in Turks and Caicos, in Barbados. The cheapest option was $45,000 for a basic package that would cover the venue, flowers, and dinner for 50 guests. It didn't include flights, accommodations, or any of the extras. Michael came to me privately one evening. "Dad, I know it's a lot of money, but it's our dream wedding." Jennifer's always imagined getting married on a beach, with just our closest family and friends. "How much are we talking about total?" I asked. "With everything, probably around $75,000. $75,000. It was more than many people made in a year. It was more than I'd spent on my first house. But this was my son's wedding, the most important day of his life. How do you put a price on that?" "We'll make it work," I told him. I liquidated part of my retirement account. I took out a business loan using our company assets as collateral. I sold my collection of vintage watches that I'd been building for 15 years, whatever it took to give Michael and Jennifer the wedding of their dreams. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. The planning process took 8 months. Jennifer was meticulous about every detail. The invitations had to be hand-calligraphed by a specific artist in New York. The flowers had to be flown in from Ecuador. The photographer was a famous wedding specialist from Los Angeles who charged $18,000 for 3 days of work. I paid for everything. Every vendor, every upgrade, every last-minute change. Michael was my partner in the business, but he hadn't built up significant personal savings yet. Most of his income went to his apartment in Lincoln Park, his car payment, and his lifestyle. I didn't mind. This was an investment in his happiness. 3 months before the wedding, Jennifer's parents invited us to dinner at their country club in Denver. It was a beautiful place, all dark wood and crystal chandeliers and waiters in white jackets. The kind of place where memberships cost more than most people's cars. During dinner, Robert started talking about business. "John, I've been thinking about your consulting company. You've built something impressive, but I wonder if you're thinking big enough." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well, you're essentially a local operation, right? 3 offices in Illinois. But consulting is a scalable business. With the right investor, the right strategic vision, you could be national within 5 years. Jennifer's eyes lit up. "That would be incredible. Michael and I have talked about expanding. We have so many ideas." "I'd love to hear them," I said. Michael leaned forward. "We've been developing a proprietary software platform that could revolutionize how small businesses track their performance metrics. Instead of just consulting, we could license the software nationwide. Recurring revenue, scalable growth, everything." It was a good idea. Actually, it was a brilliant idea. We'd been working on the software development for 6 months, using a team of freelance programmers. But it was expensive. The full development and testing would cost around $200,000. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," Roberts said. "You need capital to make something like that happen. Real capital." I'd be interested in discussing an investment opportunity. After dinner, Robert and I walked to the club's bar for a private conversation. "Here's what I'm thinking," he said. "I invest $500,000 in your company. In exchange, I get a 40% ownership stake. Michael gets promoted to Chief Operating Officer with full operational control. You remain as chairman, but you step back from day-to-day management." It was a generous offer. $500,000 would fund the software development, expand our marketing efforts, and give us the capital to pursue national growth. But 40% ownership meant I'd be giving up control of the company I'd built from nothing. "I need to think about it," I told him. "Of course, but don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't wait forever." On the flight back to Chicago, Michael was excited. "Dad, this could be everything we've dreamed of. Robert knows the business world. He has connections we could never access on our own. This partnership could set us up for life." "It's a big decision," I said. "Giving up control of the business means trusting other people with something I've spent 28 years building." "But you wouldn't be giving it up," Michael insisted. "You'd still be chairman. You'd still have final approval on major decisions. And honestly, Dad, you've been working yourself to death for decades. Maybe it's time to let someone else handle the stress." That night, I lay awake thinking about Robert's offer, about the future of the company, about Michael's dreams, about the legacy I wanted to leave behind. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. I decided to accept the partnership. We signed the papers 6 weeks before the wedding. Robert's investment allowed us to complete the software development ahead of schedule. Michael threw himself into the operational management with incredible energy and vision. Within 2 months, we had our first out-of-state clients. The expansion was working exactly as we'd hoped. The wedding preparations continued flawlessly. Jennifer had transformed into a planning machine, coordinating every detail with military precision. The resort in Turks and Caicos confirmed all arrangements. 50 guests had confirmed their attendance. I'd booked a block of rooms at the resort for our family and friends, covering the accommodations as my wedding gift to Michael and Jennifer. 2 weeks before the wedding, Michael came to my office. He looked nervous, fidgeting with a pen and avoiding eye contact. "Dad, we need to talk about something." "About the wedding? What's wrong? Did something happen with the resort?" "No, everything's fine with the venue. It's about the guest list. Jennifer and I have been thinking, and we want to keep the ceremony really intimate. Just immediate family, that makes sense. 50 people is still pretty intimate. Though," Michael took a deep breath. "Actually, we want to make it even smaller. Just parents and siblings, Jennifer's family, and, well, that's it." I stared at him. "What do you mean? That's it?" "I mean, it's going to be just 6 people. Jennifer's parents, her sister, and me and Jennifer. We want something really private and personal. What about me and your mother? Michael looked at the floor. Dad, this is really hard to say, but Jennifer and I think it would be better if it was just Jennifer's family at the ceremony. You and Mom can come to the resort. Of course, there'll be a reception dinner the next night. But the actual ceremony, we want to keep it really small. The words hit me like a physical blow. You're excluding us from your wedding ceremony. It's not exclusion, Dad. It's just, Jennifer's family is paying for a lot of the wedding expenses now. Her parents want to keep the ceremony intimate. You understand? Right? I understood perfectly. Jennifer's family was paying for the wedding expenses because I'd given Robert 40% of my company, because I'd stepped back from operational control, because I was no longer the primary financial decision maker in my son's life. Michael, I've paid for this entire wedding. Every vendor, every detail, every expense for 8 months. I know, Dad, and we're grateful. That's why you and Mom are invited to everything else. The dinner, the dancing, the celebration. Just not the ceremony itself. The ceremony is the wedding. Michael, everything else is just a party. Dad, please don't make this harder than it has to be. This is what Jennifer wants. It's her dream wedding. What about what I want? What about the fact that I've sacrificed everything to give you this opportunity? What about the fact that I liquidated my retirement and took out loans to pay for this wedding? Michael finally looked up at me. Dad, you're being selfish. This isn't about you. It's about me and Jennifer starting our life together. If you really love me, you'll support our decision. Selfies. 80 years of 18-hour days. Of driving the same car until it literally wouldn't start. Of buying my clothes at discount stores so my son could have the best of everything, and I was being selfish. Get out of my office, I said quietly. Dad, come on, don't be like this. Get out, now. Michael left. I sat alone in my office for 3 hours, staring at the wall where I'd hung a picture of Michael's college graduation. In the photo, he's wearing his cap and gown, grinning, with his arm around my shoulders. I'm beaming with pride. It was one of the happiest days of my life. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. That night, Sarah and I had the hardest conversation of our marriage. How can he do this to us? She cried. How can he exclude his own parents from his wedding? Because we don't matter anymore, I said. Robert's money matters. Jennifer's family matters. We're just the people who got him to this point. Maybe we should boycott the whole trip. Just not go at all. No, I said. We'll go. We'll smile and pretend everything is fine. Because if we don't, we'll lose him forever. The flight to Turks and Caicos was torture. Michael and Jennifer were on the same plane, sitting in first class. Sarah and I were in economy, 3 rows behind them. They didn't speak to us during the entire 5-hour flight. We arrived at the resort on Thursday. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. Friday night was supposed to be a rehearsal dinner for all the guests. Except there were only 6 people at the dinner: Jennifer's parents, her sister, Amanda, Michael, Jennifer, and Robert's brother, who'd flown in from Seattle. Sarah and I weren't invited to the rehearsal dinner. We ate alone at the resort's buffet restaurant, watching our son celebrate with his new family while we sat like strangers at a table across the room. Saturday morning, I woke up early and walked on the beach. The resort was beautiful. Crystal clear water, white sand, palm trees swaying in the breeze. It was exactly the kind of place I'd dreamed of visiting with Sarah when we retired, when we had time to enjoy the fruits of all our labor. At 2 o'clock, Michael's wedding ceremony began on a private section of beach. I could see it from our hotel room balcony. Jennifer looked radiant in a flowing white dress that cost $4,000. Michael wore a custom tuxedo that I'd paid for 3 months earlier. Jennifer's father walked her down the aisle. Robert officiated the ceremony, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. I watched my son get married from a hotel balcony, like a stranger spying on someone else's life. The ceremony lasted 20 minutes. Afterward, the wedding party went inside for a private reception. Just the 6 of them, celebrating in the resort's VIP suite, that I'd reserved and paid 4 months ago. Sarah and I spent Saturday evening walking around the resort, trying to avoid running into anyone from the wedding party. We had dinner at the same buffet restaurant, alone again. Sunday was the family dinner that Michael had promised. All the wedding guests, plus a few other resort visitors who'd been invited to make the party seem bigger. Sarah and I sat at a table with 2 couples from Denver whom we'd never met. Jennifer's parents sat at the head table with a bride and groom. We might as well have been paying customers who'd wandered into the wrong event. During dinner, Robert stood up to make a toast. Jennifer and Michael, watching you to find each other has been one of the great joys of our lives. You're building something beautiful together, a partnership based on love, respect, and shared dreams. Michael, welcome to our family. We couldn't be prouder to call you our son. Our son. Robert called my son, our son, while Sarah and I sat at a table in the back of the room, forgotten and invisible. The dinner ended at 10 o'clock. Michael and Jennifer made the rounds, thanking everyone for coming. When they reached our table, Jennifer gave Sarah a polite hug. "Thank you so much for being here," she said, like we were distant relatives who'd made an effort to attend. Michael shook my hand. Actually shook my hand, like I was a business acquaintance, instead of the man who'd given him everything. "Thanks for coming, Dad. I know this wasn't easy." "Congratulations," I managed to say. "I hope you'll be very happy." "We will be." They moved on to the next table. Sarah started crying silently. I put my arm around her and led her back to our room. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. Monday morning, we flew back to Chicago. Michael and Jennifer were staying in Turks and Caicos for another week, honeymooning in the same resort where I'd been treated like an unwelcome stranger. I went back to work on Tuesday. The office felt different. Michael's nameplate was still on his door, but somehow the dynamic had changed. Robert was there every morning by 8 o'clock, reviewing reports and making decisions about operational changes. I was the chairman, but I felt like a guest in my own company. 3 days after we returned from Turks and Caicos, I received a phone call that would change everything. "Mr. Peterson, this is James Morrison from Morrison, Klein and Associates. We're a law firm in New York that specializes in estate planning and inheritance law. I'm calling regarding your uncle, Harold Peterson." I barely remembered Uncle Harold. He was my father's brother, a man I'd met maybe 3 times in my entire life. He'd never married, had no children, and had lived as a recluse in upstate New York for as long as I could remember. "I'm sorry to inform you that Harold passed away last month," the lawyer continued. "According to his will, you are his sole beneficiary." "I'm sorry. What?" "Harold left his entire estate to you, Mr. Peterson. We've completed the probate process, and I'm calling to arrange the transfer of assets." "What kind of assets are we talking about?" "Primarily, real estate and investment accounts. The total value is approximately $10 million. $10 million. I nearly dropped the phone. Harold had owned 700 acres of farmland in upstate New York that had been in our family for 3 generations. Over the past decade, developers had been buying up rural land in that area for commercial projects. Harold's property was worth $6.4 million. The rest of his estate consisted of conservative investments that he'd been building for 40 years. The inheritance was legitimate, completely legal, and thoroughly documented. Harold had updated his will just 2 years before his death, specifically naming me as his beneficiary. According to the lawyer, Harold had followed my business success through newspaper articles and local business journals. He was proud of what I'd accomplished and wanted to ensure his family's land stayed in the Peterson name. The check arrived on the same day that Michael returned from his honeymoon. I was sitting in my study at home, staring at a certified check for $10 million, when Michael called. "Dad, can we talk? I want to come over tonight. There are some things I need to say." "Sure. Come whenever you're ready." Michael arrived at 8 o'clock. He looked tanned and relaxed, exactly like a man who'd just spent a week in paradise. He sat in the chair across from my desk, the same chair where we'd had 1,000 conversations about business, about life, about the future. "Dad, I owe you an apology. I know the wedding situation was hard for you and Mom, but I want you to understand why we made that decision. I'm listening. Jennifer's family has connections that could transform our business. Robert isn't just an investor. He's a strategic partner. His brother-in-law owns a chain of franchises across the Midwest. His college roommate runs a venture capital fund in California. These are opportunities we could never access on our own. And excluding your parents from your wedding ceremony was part of building those connections. Michael sighed. Dad, you have to understand. Business is about relationships, about showing respect to the people who can help you succeed. Robert's investment in our company came with certain expectations, such as treating his family as equal partners in major decisions. The wedding was Jennifer's day, but it was also about solidifying our relationship with her parents, about showing them that I understand how to prioritize what matters, and your mother and I don't matter. That's not what I'm saying. You matter differently. Your family, Robert and Patricia, are business partners. I have to manage those relationships carefully. I looked at my son, this brilliant, ambitious man I'd raised and mentored and loved unconditionally for 27 years. He was explaining to me why excluding his parents from his wedding was a strategic business decision. Michael, do you know what I did yesterday? Worked, I assume. You're always working. I deposited a check for $10 million. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. Michael's expression changed instantly. What are you talking about? My uncle Harold died. He left me his entire estate. $10 million. Holy shit. Dad, that's incredible. This changes everything. With that kind of capital, we could expand nationally within 6 months. We could buy out competitors, hire the best talent, dominate the entire consulting industry. I mean, you'll invest it in the business, right? This is exactly the kind of opportunity we've been waiting for. I picked up the check from my desk and held it so Michael could see it clearly. This check is made out to John Peterson, not to Peterson Consulting Solutions, not to Michael Peterson, to me personally. Right, but you'll invest it in our company? In our future, our company? Michael, you just spent 10 minutes explaining to me why your wife's parents are more important than your own parents, why their approval and their relationships matter more than the 28 years I spent building this business and raising you. Dad, that's not fair. You're taking this out of context. Am I? Let me tell you what context looks like. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder I'd prepared after returning from Turks and Caicos. This folder contains copies of every check I've written for your benefit over the past 27 years. Your college fund, your car, your hockey equipment, your wedding, your honeymoon suite. The total amount is $438,000. That doesn't include the business partnership, the salary I've paid you, or the equity stake you have in our company. Michael stared at the folder. Dad, where are you going with this? I'm going toward a conversation about respect, about loyalty, about what family actually means. I've always been loyal to you. Really? Then why did you exclude me from your wedding ceremony? Why did you allow your wife's father to call you our son while your actual parents sat in the back of the room like strangers? Because it was complicated. Because business relationships require delicate handling. Because sometimes you have to make strategic decisions that feel personal but aren't. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the lawn I'd spent 15 years landscaping stretched toward the street where Michael had learned to ride his bike. Michael, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. This $10 million represents freedom. It represents choices. It represents the ability to make decisions based on principles instead of need. Okay? And I've made my choice. I'm retiring from Peterson Consulting Solutions, effective immediately. I'm selling my 60% ownership stake to Robert for fair market value. He can buy you out or keep you as a partner. That's between the two of you. The $10 million from Uncle Harold will be invested in a trust fund for your future children. Assuming you have any, but you'll never see a penny of it directly. Michael's face went white. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You made a strategic decision to prioritize your wife's family over your own parents, to treat us like business associates. instead of the people who sacrificed everything to give you opportunities. Now I'm making a strategic decision of my own. This is insane. You're destroying everything we've built together. No, Michael, you destroyed it when you decided that your parents weren't important enough to attend your wedding ceremony. When you decided that Robert's money and connections mattered more than 27 years of love and sacrifice. But the business, our legacy, everything we've worked for, the business will survive without me. Robert's investment and connections will probably make it more successful than it ever was under my leadership. As for our legacy, I turned back to face him. Our legacy is that I raised a son who understands the price of everything and the value of nothing. Michael stood up abruptly. Dad, please, let's talk about this rationally. You're hurt. I understand that. But don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Temporary emotions. Michael, you excluded your parents from your wedding ceremony. You allowed another man to publicly claim you as his son, while your actual father sat ignored in the background. These aren't temporary emotions. This is a fundamental understanding of who you've become. I became successful. I became everything you wanted me to be. I wanted you to be a good man who understood loyalty and family and respect. Instead, you became someone who calculates the strategic value of every relationship, including the relationship with your own parents. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. Michael left that night without saying goodbye. Sarah heard the entire conversation from the kitchen and cried for 2 hours afterward. But she agreed with my decision. He needs to understand what he's lost, she said. Maybe this will teach him. The next morning, I called my lawyer and began the process of selling my shares in Peterson Consulting Solutions. Robert was delighted to buy me out. The company's recent growth and the software platform we'd developed made my 60% stake worth $2.8 million. Combined with Uncle Harold's inheritance, I was suddenly worth almost $13 million. I also called a financial advisor and established an educational trust fund for Michael's future children. The fund would pay for college tuition, graduate school, and other educational expenses. But the principal would never be accessible to Michael directly. If he wanted his children to benefit from their grandfather's generosity, he'd have to rebuild our relationship first. 3 days after Michael left my house, Robert called me. John, I think we need to have a conversation. Michael is devastated about your decision to sell your shares. He's not thinking clearly, and it's affecting his work performance. That's unfortunate. Look, I understand you're upset about the wedding situation. Patricia and I discussed it afterward, and we realized we might have been too restrictive about the guest list. We're willing to host a reception party here in Denver, invite your whole extended family, really celebrate Michael and Jennifer properly. That's very generous, but unnecessary. John, you're making a mistake. Michael is brilliant, but he needs mentorship. He needs his father's guidance. This business partnership works because it combines his innovation with your experience. Robert, you invested $500,000 to get 40% ownership of my company. I'm selling you my 60% for $2.8 million. That's a tremendous deal for you. Michael is now your protege, not mine. But what about the $10 million from your uncle's estate? Michael says you could transform this company into a national powerhouse with that kind of investment. The $10 million is going into a trust fund for Michael's children. Michael will never have access to it directly. There was a long silence on the phone. John, that seems extreme. Michael made a mistake, but he's still your son. Yes, he is. And maybe someday he'll remember what that means. I hung up and never spoke to Robert again. 6 months later, Michael called. He was at the hospital. Jennifer was in labor with their first child. Dad, I know things have been difficult between us, but this is your grandchild. Your first grandchild. I want you and Mom to be there. Are Jennifer's parents coming? Yes, they're flying in tonight. Then you'll have plenty of support. Congratulations on your new baby. I hung up before he could respond. Sarah was furious. John, that's our grandchild. You can't punish a baby for Michael's mistakes. I'm not punishing anyone. Michael has made his priorities clear. Jennifer's parents are the grandparents he wants his children to know. I'm respecting that decision. This is our only chance to be grandparents. No, Sarah. This is our only chance to be grandparents. on Michael's terms. Where we're included when it's convenient, and excluded when it's not. Where we're treated like distant relatives instead of family. The baby was a girl. They named her Emma. Michael sent a photo via text message. She was beautiful, with Michael's dark hair and Jennifer's delicate features. Looking at that photo was like being stabbed in the heart. But I didn't call. I didn't visit. I didn't send gifts, or flowers, or congratulations. 2 weeks after Emma was born, Michael showed up at our house unannounced. He looked exhausted and desperate. "Dad, we need to talk. Really talk. About everything that's happened. Come in. Pala. Come in." We sat in the same study where we'd had our last conversation 8 months earlier. Michael looked older, more worn down. Fatherhood was already changing him. "Dad, I've been thinking about what you said. About loyalty and family and respect. And I want you to know that I understand now. Do you? Having Emma... holding my daughter for the first time. It changed something in me. I kept thinking about how much I want to protect her, how much I want to give her everything good in life. And I realized that's exactly how you felt about me." I waited for him to continue. "I also realized how much I've hurt you and Mom. How selfish I've been. How I took your sacrifices for granted and prioritized other people's approval over your feelings. And I want to make it right. I want Emma to know her grandparents, her real grandparents. The people who built the foundation that made everything else possible. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had." Michael, what happened at your wedding wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. You chose to exclude your parents from the most important day of your life because it was strategically advantageous. You chose to let another man claim you as his son while your actual parents sat forgotten in the background. Those weren't errors in judgment. They were calculated decisions that showed me exactly where I stand in your life. Dad, I was wrong. Completely wrong. I let Jennifer's family influence decisions that should have been based on love and respect for you and Mom. And what's changed? Jennifer's parents are still your business partners. Robert still owns 40% of the company you work for. The fundamental dynamics that led to your wedding decision are still in place. Michael was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking about that, too. About the business partnership with Robert. What about it? I want out. I want to start over. Build something that's truly ours, without outside investors, without compromising family relationships for strategic advantages. I studied my son's face. He looked sincere, but I'd been fooled by his sincerity before. Michael, starting over means giving up everything you've built with Robert, the software platform, the national expansion plans, the connections and opportunities. Are you really prepared for that sacrifice? Yes. Emma deserves to grow up knowing her real family, and I deserve the chance to prove that I learned something from the biggest mistake of my life. What does Jennifer think about this decision? Michael's expression darkened slightly. Jennifer doesn't know yet, but this isn't her choice to make. This is about my relationship with my parents and my responsibility to my daughter. And if Jennifer disagrees, if she wants you to stay with Robert's company, then she'll have to understand that some things are more important than money and career advancement. I wanted to believe him. Every fiber of my being wanted to embrace my son and welcome him back into our family. But trust, once broken, doesn't heal easily. Michael, I appreciate what you're saying, but words are just words. I need to see actions. Consistent actions over time. What do you want me to do? First, I want you to quit Robert's company and start your own business. Without his money, without his connections, without any financial support from Jennifer's family. Done.se. Second, I want you to have an honest conversation with Jennifer about what happened at your wedding and why it was wrong. Not a strategic discussion about business relationships, but a moral discussion about family loyalty. I can do that. Third, I want you to understand that your mother and I will not be backup grandparents. We won't be the people you call when Jennifer's parents are unavailable. If we're going to be part of Emma's life, we're going to be equal participants, not convenient substitutes. I understand. And finally, I want you to know that the $10 million in Emma's trust fund comes with conditions. She'll have access to educational funding, but only if our family relationship is genuinely repaired. If you exclude us from major family events again, if you prioritize other people's approval over family loyalty again, the trust fund will be donated to charity." Michael nodded slowly. "That's fair. More than fair. We'll see. Go home to your wife and daughter. Think carefully about what this conversation means. If you're serious about rebuilding our relationship, call me in a week." Michael left that evening with a handshake instead of a hug, but it felt different from our last parting. More hopeful, but still cautious. A week later, he called. "Dad, I gave my notice to Robert yesterday. I'm starting my own consulting firm, Peterson Strategic Solutions." What was Robert's reaction? He was angry. He said I was making an emotional decision that would ruin my career. He offered to increase my salary and give me additional equity to stay. And I told him that some things matter more than money. I told him I wanted to build something with my family instead of building something despite my family. It was a start. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. Over the next 6 months, Michael slowly proved his commitment to change. He left Robert's company and started his own consulting firm, working initially from a small office he rented in downtown Evanston. His first clients were small businesses that couldn't afford the premium rates of larger consulting firms. He worked 18-hour days, exactly like I had 30 years earlier. Jennifer was not happy about the career change. According to Sarah, who had begun speaking with Jennifer occasionally, there were several heated arguments about Michael's decision to leave Robert's lucrative partnership. Jennifer felt that Michael was sabotaging their financial security for the sake of his pride. But Michael held firm. He rebuilt his consulting practice from the ground up, using the skills and experience he'd gained over the years, but without any of Robert's financial backing or connections. It was hard work, but it was honest work. More importantly, Michael began including Sarah and me in Emma's life, not as backup babysitters or emergency contacts, but as genuine grandparents. We were invited to Emma's baptism, to her first Christmas, to every milestone and celebration. When Emma took her first steps at 10 months old, Michael called us immediately so we could witness the moment. The relationship with Jennifer remained strained. She was polite but distant, clearly uncomfortable with the shift in family dynamics. She'd grown accustomed to her parents being the primary grandparents, the primary source of family support and advice. Having to share that role with Sarah and me was an adjustment she handled with obvious reluctance. But Michael was determined to make things right. When Emma turned 1 year old, he insisted on hosting her birthday party at our house in Kenilworth. It was the first time Jennifer's parents had been in our home since the engagement party 3 years earlier. The atmosphere was tense but civil. During the party, Robert pulled me aside for a private conversation. "John, I want you to know that I respect what Michael is building with his new company. He's talented and determined, but he's also struggling financially. If there's anything I can do to help, any way we can work together. Robert, Michael's success or failure will be determined by his own efforts. That's how it should be. I understand, but Emma is our granddaughter too. We want what's best for her future. Then support Michael's decision to build something honest and sustainable, even if it's not as immediately profitable as working with your company." Robert nodded, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. He was a man accustomed to solving problems with money and influence. Michael's refusal to accept his help was incomprehensible to him. 18 months after Emma's birth, Jennifer became pregnant again. This time, Michael called us the moment they found out. "Dad, we're having another baby. We wanted you and Mom to be among the first to know. Congratulations. How is Jennifer feeling?" "She's good. Tired, but good. We're hoping for a boy this time." "Have you told Jennifer's parents yet?" "We called them right after we called you." It was a small thing, but significant. Being called at the same time as Jennifer's parents, rather than days or weeks later, showed that Michael was serious about treating both sets of grandparents equally. The second baby was indeed a boy. They named him James, after my father. When Michael told me they'd chosen that name, I nearly broke down crying. My father had died when Michael was 12 years old. The fact that Michael remembered him, honored him, showed a level of thoughtfulness and respect that I hadn't seen in years. I was in the delivery room when James was born. not watching from a hotel balcony, not receiving a text message hours later, but actually present for the moment my grandson entered the world. Jennifer's parents were there too, all of us crowding around the hospital bed, all of us equally involved in welcoming this new life. As I held James for the first time, looking down at his tiny face, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Genuine hope for our family's future. Michael's business continued to grow slowly but steadily. He landed several significant contracts with medium-sized companies that needed strategic planning assistance. His approach was different from the hyper-sure high-fee model that Robert's company used. Michael focused on building long-term relationships, on truly understanding his clients' needs and helping them achieve sustainable growth. It was exactly the kind of business I'd always dreamed of building with him. On James's first birthday, Michael came to me with a proposition. "Dad, I want to ask you something, but I want you to know that there's no pressure to say yes." "What is it?" "I'd like you to consider becoming a partner in Peterson Strategic Solutions, not a financial investor, but a strategic advisor, someone who can help me avoid the mistakes I made before and guide the company's growth in the right direction." I was surprised. "Michael, you've spent 3 years proving that you can build a successful business on your own. Why do you want my involvement now?" "Because I realized something. The business I'm building now is exactly what we should have built together from the beginning. Before Robert's investment, before the complications, before I lost sight of what really matters. I want James and Emma to see their father and grandfather working together, building something meaningful as a family." And what does Jennifer think about this idea? Jennifer supports it. She's seen how much happier I am working independently, how much stronger our family has become since I left Robert's company. She wants our children to grow up understanding the value of family partnerships. I considered the offer carefully. Working with Michael again would mean risking another disappointment, another betrayal, but it would also mean the opportunity to rebuild something we'd lost, to create the legacy I'd always envisioned. "I'll consider it," I told him. "But if we're going to work together, it has to be on equal terms. Full partners with mutual respect and shared decision-making authority." Absolutely. That's exactly what I want. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. 6 months later, I became a partner in Peterson's Strategic Solutions. Not the majority owner, not the controlling investor, but an equal partner with my son. We moved the business to a larger office space in Wilmette, close to both our homes. Sarah helped design the interior, creating a warm, family-friendly environment where clients felt comfortable and employees felt valued. The business flourished under our joint leadership. Michael brought energy, innovation, and fresh ideas. I brought experience, established relationships, and strategic thinking. Together, we created something neither of us could have built alone. More importantly, we were building it as a family. Emma and James visited the office regularly, playing in the conference room while Michael and I worked on client presentations. They grew up seeing their father and grandfather collaborate, compromise, and support each other through challenges. Jennifer gradually warmed to our family's reconciliation. She never apologized directly for the wedding situation, but she began treating Sarah and me with genuine respect and affection. When Emma started kindergarten, Jennifer asked Sarah to help with a school pickup schedule. When James had his tonsils removed, Jennifer called me for advice about managing a scared child's medical procedure. The trust fund I'd established for Emma and James continued to grow. Conservative investments and compound interest had increased its value to over $12 million by the time Emma turned 5. But more importantly, the conditions I'd attached to the fund were being met. Our family relationships were strong, based on mutual respect and genuine love, rather than strategic considerations. 3 years after I rejoined Michael's business, we received an acquisition offer from a national consulting firm. They wanted to buy Peterson's Strategic Solutions for $8.5 million. It was more money than either Michael or I had ever imagined earning from the business we'd built together. We discussed the offer extensively. The acquiring company promised to retain both of us as senior partners, to maintain our client relationships, and to use our Midwest operation as a model for expansion into other markets. It was an attractive offer that would secure our family's financial futures for generations. But ultimately, we turned it down. "Dad," Michael said during our final discussion, Some things are more valuable than money. What we've built here isn't just a business. It's a legacy. It's something we can pass down to Emma and James. Something they can be proud to inherit. Are you sure? $8.5 million would change everything for our families. It would change our bank accounts, but it wouldn't change what matters most. Our relationship, our values, our commitment to building something meaningful together. Primera smiled, looking at this man who had once calculated the strategic value of excluding his parents from his wedding, and was now choosing family legacy over immediate financial gain. Then we keep building, I said. Together? Today, Peterson Strategic Solutions employs 43 people across 4 offices in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. Michael serves as Chief Executive Officer, and I serve as Chairman of the Board. We specialize in helping family businesses navigate growth challenges while maintaining their core values and relationships. Emma is now 8 years old and has announced that she wants to be a business helper, like Daddy and Grandpa John. James is 6 and is more interested in becoming a firefighter, but he enjoys visiting the office and helping with important tasks, like organizing paper clips and testing the conference room chairs. Jennifer and I have developed a genuinely warm relationship. She often asks my advice about parenting decisions and business challenges. Last Christmas, she gave me a photo album titled Our Family Journey that included pictures from Emma's baptism, James's first steps, and dozens of other moments we've shared over the past 6 years. The photo that means the most to me is on the last page. It's from Emma's 7th birthday party, showing 4 generations of Petersons gathered around her as she blows out her candles. In the picture, Emma is grinning with missing front teeth. James is reaching for a piece of cake. Michael has his arms around both children, and I'm standing behind them all, beaming with pride. It's exactly the kind of family photos I'd dreamed of taking someday. The kind of legacy I'd always wanted to build. Sarah and I are now genuine grandparents, not backup caregivers or emergency contacts. We attend every school play, every soccer game, every important moment in Emma and James's lives. When they spend the night at our house, they sleep in rooms that Sarah has decorated specifically for them, surrounded by toys and books and photographs that tell the story of our family's love. Last month, Michael asked me to walk with him through the neighborhood where he grew up. We ended up at the park where I'd taught him to throw a baseball when he was 7 years old. "Dad," he said, "I want you to know that excluding you and Mom from my wedding is the biggest regret of my life. Not just because it hurt you, but because it showed how far I'd drifted from the values you taught me. Michael, we've moved past that. We've rebuilt something stronger. I know, but I need you to understand that every decision I make now is filtered through one question. What kind of example am I setting for Emma and James? What kind of man do I want them to remember their father being? And what's the answer? The answer is that I want to be the kind of man who puts family first, who understands that success without family is just expensive loneliness, who knows the difference between the price of something and its actual value." We stood there in silence for a few minutes, watching the sun set over the baseball diamond where we'd played catch countless times when Michael was young. "Dad, there's something else I want to tell you." "What's that?" "The $10 million you put in trust for Emma and James. I want you to know that I hope they never need it. I hope Jennifer and I can provide everything they need through our own hard work and sacrifice. But I'm grateful every day that you had the wisdom to protect their future even when our relationship was broken. That money was never about them, Mike. It was about teaching you the difference between earning something and inheriting something, between working for your children's future and expecting someone else to provide it. I understand that now. And I want Emma and James to understand it too. I want them to know that the most valuable inheritance they'll receive from us isn't money. It's the example of how family members should treat each other. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe, hit the like button, and share in the comments a similar experience you've had. As we walked home that evening, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this point. The pain of being excluded from Michael's wedding had been the catalyst for everything that followed. My son's cruel decision to prioritize strategic relationships over family loyalty had forced both of us to examine what really mattered. The $10 million from Uncle Harold's inheritance had given me the freedom to make difficult decisions based on principles rather than financial need. But the real lesson hadn't been about money. It had been about respect, about loyalty, about understanding that some relationships are too important to sacrifice for strategic advantage. Michael had learned that lesson the hard way. He'd given up financial security, business connections, and career advancement to rebuild our family relationships. He'd chosen the difficult path of starting over, rather than the easy path of accepting others' money and influence. But in making that choice, he'd discovered something more valuable than Robert's investment or Jennifer's family's connections. He'd rediscovered the satisfaction of building something honest and sustainable with people who loved him unconditionally. Today, our family business generates about $2 million in annual revenue. It's not the national powerhouse that Robert had envisioned, but it's something better, a legacy that Emma and James can be proud to inherit. A business built on values rather than strategic calculations. More importantly, our family relationships are stronger than they've ever been. Michael and I work together every day, making decisions based on mutual respect and shared values. Sarah and I are integral parts of Emma and James's lives, sharing in their joys and supporting them through challenges. Jennifer's relationship with her parents has also evolved, while Robert and Patricia remain involved in their grandchildren's lives. They're no longer the primary source of family guidance and support. The balance has shifted toward genuine equality between both sets of grandparents. Last week, Emma asked me a question that brought everything full circle. "Grandpa John, why do you and Daddy work together?" "My friend's daddy works with people who aren't his family." "Well, Emma, Daddy and I work together because we're building something special. Something that will belong to you and James someday." When you work with family, you're not just building a business, you're building a legacy. What's a legacy? A legacy is something important that you create and then pass down to the people you love. It's not just money or property, it's values and relationships, and the example of how to treat people with respect and loyalty. Will I have a legacy someday? You already do, sweetheart. Every choice you make, every way you treat other people, every time you show kindness or courage or honesty, you're building your legacy. And someday, you'll pass that legacy down to your own children. Emma considered this seriously. "I want to build a good legacy." Then remember the most important lesson your daddy and I have learned. Family isn't just the people who love you when it's convenient. Family is the people who love you when it's difficult. And those people deserve your loyalty, your respect, and your very best efforts, no matter what. "I'll remember, Grandpa John." "I know you will, Emma. And that's the most valuable inheritance I could ever leave you." This morning, I woke up thinking about Uncle Harold, the reclusive man whose unexpected generosity had changed the course of our family's story. I'd never really known him, but his final gift had given me the financial freedom to make difficult decisions based on principles rather than desperation. Harold had followed my business success from afar and decided that I was worthy of inheriting his life's work. But the real inheritance hadn't been the money. It had been the opportunity to teach my son about values, about loyalty, about the difference between the price of something and its actual worth. My son had cruelly excluded me from his wedding, prioritizing strategic relationships over family loyalty. But that painful experience had ultimately led to something beautiful. A rebuilt relationship based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine love. The $10 million sits safely in Emma and James's trust fund, growing steadily through conservative investments. But the real treasure isn't the money they'll inherit. It's the example they're seeing every day of how family members should treat each other with love, respect, and unwavering loyalty. The lesson was indeed brutal, but it was also necessary. And in the end, it taught us all something invaluable about what really matters in life. Family first. Always family first. Thanks for watching our story today. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily stories that matter. Leave us a like and tell us in the comments which city and country you're watching from. Until next time, remember that the most important investments we make aren't financial, they're relational.